Namaste Galactic family. Welcome back to my channel, IndigoAngel. And today I have a very special guest on my channel. This is one of my very good friends and um, just an amazing person, an amazing energy on YouTube. This is Kimber Kiss, the Cosmic Queen. And me and her have been going back and forth for some time now over the Pegasus systems. The celestial body of Pegasus, or the radial intelligence of the Pegasus constellation, the horse constellation, the winged horse. And we wanted to do this video today to bring information forward to you guys on a lot of the interconnections that we have been making through this system. It's a system that we feel we need to discuss and kind of hash out because we both seem to be a little bit, I don't want to say confused, but just the more that we dive into the system, the more intel that we keep getting that keeps linking us further into the deep state and the deep military, into a lot of the technologies and sciences that have basically have left somewhat of a tormented past in certain locations like the Montauk project, which is something that we're going to discuss today. But all the way to, aviation and flight and a lot of technologies that have really served humanity in terms of the technological advancements. And also where we are today in a lot of these sciences, which are interplanetary exploration and things like this, and things that are kind of evolving humanity. So we're going to kind of try and tie in all of these topics and subjects as we dive in. And I think we're going to start with kind of just going over the Greek mythology or the expression of Pegasus and kind of see where this leads us. And thank you so much, Kimber Kiss, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So Greek mythology. Again, here's another area within the Pegasus description that leaves us a little bit confused, right? I mean, we have Pegasus. Yes.
Because it's so much. It would be one thing if it was, just one perspective that we're looking into, but it's like the culmination of all these things that are just like derived from both like dark forces, but then you look at it from a different angle and that could be a light force, so it's like, perhaps it's both working within the system, but I think more of it is derived from like the lower frequencies.
Yeah. I was looking into, I think it was an email that you had sent me where I think it was just the Greek mythology expression of it. I'm not going to pull it up just yet, but basically Pegasus is born from the decapitation of Medusa.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I think that's really interesting when you start to dive into Medusa as this, she was considered as this feminine abuser from being abused and basically being raped by Poseidon and
crazy,
turning into a monster. And then, it is crazy. And then she births Pegasus. So it's like, what does that mean when you're born from a monster, or so to speak? So I think that kind of maybe sets the tone in the way that Pegasus's intelligence is used here on the earth.
Yeah.
Is it used for war? Which for me, what I'm noticing is like when the war frequencies come up in the grids, this is when we feel the ignition of Pegasus.
Yeah. The ignition, whatever it's called. But it really is though, whenever these things are going on in the world, it's like, boom, Pegasus. And then it's also interesting because it's also the technology side of it. Like you've gotten before, because I've taken notes from your updates, the Pegasian updates in the past, and like the Nexus system.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how the technology also flows into it and the war aspect. It's weird.
So I'm just going to share my screen really quick. So for those of you who are following along that's not very familiar with the Nexus systems, I actually pulled it up here. So Pegasus is basically this radial signature. So when we talk about this, we're talking about like the intelligence source of what is this subatomic or the atomic reality spectrum that's upholding these types of facilities, systems, programs, agencies to be able to flourish. Like this is the radial spectrum of cosmic or collective mind that upholds like these types of programs to come forward. So this is like how or why we're connecting it to this. But the Pegasus system basically is at the forefront of the Nexus systems. I believe, even if you were to Google or research like Pegasus Nexus, you'd pull pretty much the same information what's on Wikipedia here. Nexus for Exoplanet System Sciences. And this is just basically it's the initiative of NASA that has moved forward in collaborations to explore exoplanets. So when you think of what Pegasus is doing, like even if you go back to like history and humans experiences with horses, right? Like back from the days of colonization, like Pegasus has always been at the root of expanding into new territory. And so that's kind of what this Nexus system represents, is this expanding from new territory from the Earth grids all the way into interplanetary space exploration. And so I feel like it only makes sense that Pegasus would interweave into the sciences and experiments of secret intelligence agencies and governments that are getting us to that place.
Wow, yeah. You explained that perfectly.
Trust me, I have to like wrap my own, I guess, awareness around my own mind to make sure I'm getting words out correctly when I'm saying these things. But yeah, I feel like there's just so much like intricate explanation to kind of get the full picture. And even still, it's hard to get the full picture with Pegasus.
Yeah. It's so much. It's so vast. It's also interesting, like the mythology of Pegasus, because I had actually forgotten that he was birthed from Medusa's severed head, but I have it written right here. And then he also stamped the earth with his hoof, creating the fountain of the muses. And there's 9 of them. And then like Medusa. So it still coincides with Hydra somewhat because the 9 heads. So
yeah,
there's still that tie, it's interesting.
Well, I think we've always connected Hydra with Andromeda too.
Yes.
And
that's right.
Andromeda shares star systems with Pegasus.
It does. I just found that out yesterday when I was researching. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It is so crazy because I've been feeling now, at least over the last week, that Pegasus, I feel, is like maybe an intermediary, like interceptor type of energy from like Andromeda futurism, like the futuristic technologies of Andromeda, and that Pegasus is here like implementing it. Like it's like the informant, or it's like the the way that it's implemented, or at least serving as like a midway station from Andromeda. But then that leads us to look deeper into like, well, what is Andromeda doing in terms of technology, which I feel like it only makes sense that they would be much more advanced than, let's say, even Arcturus. Like I think now when we
I do too. I think the same thing, because like you think Arcturus, and yes, that's a lot of advanced technology, but Andromeda is literally the future. It literally is. It's like billions of years ahead,
Yeah.
It's just, and it's like we're predicted. I mean, supposedly there's research that says we're predicted to collide into it, but some research says that they've disproven that we're going to bypass and slide side by side. But either way, even if we just bypass and slide by side, we're still receiving those codes and that information, and it's still feeding into our galaxy one way or another. And it's feeding in through Pegasus, obviously, because otherwise we wouldn't even have the knowledge of this technology to begin with. And it's been going on for who knows how long with the CIA and everything. So it's interesting for sure.
It is interesting. It makes you start to question that these things that we label as like dark, or the progression, the way in which technology has to progress, I guess, like, because if we start to look at the Montauk projects, and what they were doing there. So I'm just going to share my screen again so we can kind of like dive into this, because this is really what me and Kimbercus have kind of been passing back and forth for quite some time.
For a while.
Is the Montauk. So this is crazy. This is like a picture that I actually found. Oh wait, never mind. Let me go back. That's not the actual picture. So this was a picture. So this is the emblem of the Montauk Project book. I actually have this book. I ordered this book.
You ordered it? I'm so jealous. I want it.
I thought, well, it was good. It really went into, I guess, the darker things that happened there.
Okay.
And also just trying to prove in the book that the conspiracy was real.
Okay.
I was looking for like different types of details when I was like going through it, though. I kind of wanted more, I guess, just what specific technologies were taking place there, in detail.
Right.
Because I think once we've dived into a lot of this research, I think we've actually uncovered and decoded a lot of that.
Yeah.
But what I have found interesting about this is this symbolism from the Montauk Project is literally the same horse out front of the DIA airport. I know, it's wild.
It is.
And I kind of feel like that they moved the Montauk Project, that it's not like this ever like stopped ceasing to exist, that this was just fundamentally shifted locations. And now that the DIA may be like the hub for the continuation of Montauk time travel experiences to continue to exist. And it would make so much sense. It would be out front of an airport. Just because time travel is very close to the frequency of aviation.
Oh my gosh. It just made me think of something. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah,
it just made me think of something. There's a Pegasus, the name Pegasus. I have to find the link to this. I'll send it to you after we do our video. But it has to do with the airbase, like the avian technology, airplanes and everything. It was Pegasus.
Was it like out front of a specific airport or something, or?
No, it's like an actual company.
Okay.
Or system. And it had to do with airplanes. And I just remembered just now, because I found it and I didn't understand when I was watching the video why I was drawn to it, because this was a while ago. I found it on YouTube. I'll send it to you right after. But it was Pegasus. And I think someone committed suicide too that was going to whistleblow on them. He killed himself by flying into a building.
Wow.
Yeah. I just remember, I'm like, what? But I was trying to figure out, like, what does this have to do with aviation? And then we just discovered the DIA airport link. So,
yeah. Well, I think the Pegasus, like the intelligence of Pegasus, I think has always supported aviation. Like it's always just because it's flight, like the winged horse.
The flying horse. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, yeah, that's interesting that you say that. You should let me know what that is, and I'll just kind of add it. I'll add it to the list of like
the links,
programs, and things that Pegasus is associated to. I think overall, like what we're trying to get out is there are so many projects that Pegasus is associated to. Like we have DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Like this is upheld by Pegasus projects. Montauk Project. We have the, let's see what else I have here. I pulled up a bunch of stuff.
There's like the Bulgarian Experiment, Project Paperclip, the Phoenix Project, and Project Rainbow too, that I was looking into. And some of them are just different names for other ones. Like I think the Phoenix Project is the same as like the Montauk Project. So it's just, but Project Rainbow and Project Paperclip, I believe, are separate. But Montauk is a huge chunk of it. Like that's, I think, the one that's emphasized the most.
Yeah. Well, I think like the Rainbow Project in like the Philadelphia experiments where they had that ship that like disappeared and came back.
Yeah.
I think all of this was held under the Montauk projects.
Oh yeah. I think so too. I think that's why I think you're right.
Yeah. So it's just interesting that we have all of these like different facets of intelligence systems that are upheld by the Pegasus intelligence. It's just, it blows me away. And that's again, come back to this feeling of like, I don't know how to feel about Pegasus at this point. Like I feel like it's used as a war implementer. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why it came up here in terms of like cosmic energy is because of the Antares alignment, like the moon with Antares, you know, August 15th through August 17th, how we had that Antarian moon alignment. And then we had, you know, Afghanistan in the Kabul, Afghanistan fell to the Taliban. Yep. And so we have this like resurgence of like war back into the grids, the frequency. Yeah. And I think some of the predictions that I was making is that like, I feel we're going to really feel that all the way through November, like through Antares alignments, like as we culminate to that, like it's going to continue to expose itself, and Pegasus is going to be more of a force, even though we're not necessarily in alignment to that system right now.
Right. And it makes sense. Like I kept getting Antares. And there's like something to do with the Midway station in Antares. And then it's interesting because you had said Midway station and how it links to Pegasus. So perhaps they're both somewhat, you know, they have to be tied together somehow with all the occurring events and everything.
Some of the things I've been seeing is Pegasus, I feel like it's tied to all systems of war. And I don't like to say that because it's like,
I know.
I feel like,
but it's like the more research you do, that's what you see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was linked to the Cold War with the information that you sent me with the human radiation experiments that were going on. And then I think it was Bill Clinton, that video that you sent me.
Yes.
And the human radiation. I started watching that last night because I wanted to have more to go off of with that. And I got like halfway through and I was so disgusted with how they were almost like celebrating it in a sense that like I couldn't even watch the whole video. I was like, this isn't right. There's nothing right about that.
Yeah, guys. So there is a Bill Clinton video out where I'll leave the links to it in the description of this video, but essentially Bill Clinton goes through and he basically admits to all types of like radiation experiments that basically happened. And he's just saying like, I don't know, was he like justifying it? He was just like, well, this happened. And so he wasn't really holding anybody accountable. He was just like admitting to it.
Like fessing up to like the wrongs that went on and took place and how people were unjustly treated. And I'm like, okay, well, just because you fessed up to it doesn't mean it didn't happen or doesn't make it just go away or validate it. You know, that's where I was like, ooh, I can't watch this. I had to click off.
Well, and I really wonder if like him admitting to that, if he's admitting to the things that happened at the Montauk Project.
Right.
Because it does seem like that is the bulk of where, you know, time travel experimentation like really kind of took off.
Yeah,
they were using Nikola Tesla type
technology.
Like the radiant energy, and they were
creating the radial tower. Did you see that tower on top of the building? It's like massive. It's so creepy.
Yes. Let me see. I can actually pull that up.
You're so good. You're on it.
Radial tower at Montauk.
And it's also interesting, like if anyone's seen the show Stranger Things was actually originally named Montauk. And there's the girl in Stranger Things, the main character 11, who is very psychically advanced, but they chose to run most of the experiments on her because she was able to open and close portals. And that's basically the kind of technology that they were trying to figure out here, and then how to advance it to a point where they could open up portals and have people go through these portals in order to time travel. So that's somewhat of the technology, but then, or the experiments, but there was also a lot of very dark experiments that Amanda was speaking about, and like the radiation and all kinds of things, and almost kind of like MK Ultra and psychosis and that kind of like mind control experiments and things. So
yeah. Well, I came across something that was saying that MK Ultra was actually tied to this.
It would make sense.
Yeah. And that it was like what happened at Montauk through like the MK Ultra part of it was probably the most severe, or you know, people who ever went through MK Ultra, like they experienced that here at Montauk. Yeah. So it's really interesting because I was really thinking about like remote viewing into Camp Hero. And I actually started to just do it on my own. And I realized
you're brave.
Like,
you're brave, Amanda.
Well, I realized how tormented it was.
Yeah.
And I realized how it just wasn't necessary. I didn't need to do it. Not saying that that area does need healing, because it does.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know if I'm at a point or at a level in what I'm doing that I want to like spend my time on trying to like heal a location that's just been so tormented. It's really, really sad because people were abducted, homeless people were abducted, children were abducted, you know, people were like psychologically damaged permanently from what I guess happened there. And so, it's just, it's really deep. It's really, and like I said, it is dark. And they moved it, and I think they moved it. And this is a portion of the things that are still to some degree happening at the DIA airport. Yeah. This new world order agenda. And that's what's interesting about it, is the more I dive into Pegasus connections, this thread, it's interweaving of technology and agencies and associations and intelligences that are operating within Pegasus spectrum keep leading us to the new world order.
Right.
And that's the symbolism that's all over the internal structure of the DIA airport.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole entire thing. There's murals, there's Masonic capstones, there's Nazi symbolism, there's words about hate and silver and gold and and all of it. It's like, it's so in your face. It's like, how could you? And they even have an underground system, because in that one video I sent you, they took that gentleman who was doing the interview of the airport underground, and he's a geologist, and they went, you know, so much so away from the airport to see if it was doable to build a underground tunnel system underground, and they dug up like sand, and so it was okay enough to have been able to dig like a tunnel system underground of it. So it could be valid that it is there. I feel it is.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering if there's like a well underneath there too,
like the Mongolian building.
So me and Kimber Kiss have been following and looking into a place called Pegasus Plaza in Dallas, Texas. So I'm just gonna share my screen with you guys again. Let me see if I can find the link where I have this. I have so many links pulled up right now that I
have so many notes, Amanda. It just goes to show like how much is involved with
that's what I'm saying. It's so vast. And this is what I'm saying too, is over the last 3 days, I think I've typed up about 25 pages of intel on Pegasus. And I just got to a point where I was like, I just need to stop.
I know.
I just need to walk away from the computer.
I get so deep into it. It's like such a rabbit hole. You just start going in. It's like, oh, but it could be this. Oh, and this. Oh, and then there's more. It's like, geez.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, and that's one thing I wanted to explain to the viewers today is, okay, so if you want to compare, you know, Pegasus, the system of Pegasus, kind of like to the Arcturian intelligence, they're both similar in the fact that I think they're on the cutting edge of forward evolution and technology. But Pegasus is different in the sense that, for one, Arcturian is really kind of working in benevolency and working on the side of light and kind of assisting humanity, working more within the geometry and the structure of civilizations. Like, I feel it's like in the architecture
and the healing.
And the yes, and the healing.
Like the good.
And Pegasus is more like in the encrypted, the undetectable. But it's also working more involved with humans. And so it's interesting. It just how it kind of plays out. But I would say Pegasus is probably one of the most, if not the most advanced system on Earth.
Yeah.
So
especially with Andromeda, especially with the Andromeda link feeding into it.
Exactly. And that's ultimately why me and Kimber Chris are just so obsessed with it. Is like, what is this? We need to decode it.
Yeah.
So this is the Pegasus Plaza, and we have a friend who like lives close by here and has been sending us pictures and really just been trying to get our attention on this place for quite some time.
For a while, yeah.
I guess this is the plaza itself, and this is the river system that comes to this concentric circle type artistic piece within the well of the water. Mm-hmm. It really reminds me of like the lingams almost. Yeah. Underneath the Hindu temples. But here's a more closer picture of it. Now this concentric circle makes me feel like it's energetically encoded to the Eye of Sahara. Everything concentric circle wise, I feel like energetically, like that's a metagalactic core gateway in the Earth system. Yeah. And that's what this symbolism may represent on some levels of intelligence.
Right.
And this is actually really big. Like you can see this chick here walking next to it.
Yeah, it's huge. And they say that the well that feeds into that is in the Mongolian building, which is that, I think it's the hotel. It's supposed to be located in like the basement of the Mongolian.
I don't know
that
if I have
feeds
a picture
into
of
that
here.
whirlpool.
Now, is this some new world order symbolism here, or what do we have?
It has to be. It has to be. You know, that picture to the right looks like the Mayan calendar to me. It's just different symbols. But there's one of the rocks that talks about like time past, time present, time future. It's inscribed in the rock. One of the rocks. Yeah, our friend Chad sent us all these different pictures of it, and one of the rocks said something about time past, time present, and
time future. I think I remember that picture. I don't know if I have
it
here.
Somewhere. I'll send it to you after this so you can insert it anywhere. But it's definitely interesting that it refers to time within that plaza.
Right. Because Pegasus seems to be, it's almost like Pegasus itself is the portal of time travel.
Yeah.
So this was the email you sent me, but it says a limestone fountain and a winding stream anchor the design of the plaza. The fountain is connected to a natural mineral spring 1,600 feet below the Magnolia building and is the source well for water in the plaza. A series of concentric circles embodied in the pavement radiates from the fountain into the surrounding streets.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wondering, like, is there a well under the DIA airport? Because it seems like Pegasus is following locations with wells and springs.
And it's interesting because when Pegasus stomped his foot, he created a fountain. So they're using that symbolism throughout what they're building and what they're using to feed off of those energies or feed into whatever they're doing. But it's definitely interesting. And it's a limestone fountain. And winding stream, and about limestone, we all know that carries that kind of electric or magnetic ability to, pick up on spiritual energy or paranormal energy. Like if you've ever watched like Ghost Hunters or any of those paranormal shows, usually the houses or the places that are very old that are built with limestone carry like the highest amounts of paranormal activity. So it's like, okay, well, they know what materials they're using to utilize this and to, it just made me think of that just now, like why limestone?
Yeah. Well, in the well. Pegasus is just, it's just so undetectable. And I feel like this system is birthing into the collective consciousness, similar in the way like how we felt Hydra kind of birthed itself. Like it came at a time when I think people were just ready for its revelation. Right. Like it's ready. These are things that are hid deep in the subconscious and the unconscious collective mind.
Yeah.
and they're things that are under the radar and on a need to know basis. And, you know, with the Hydra system, it's all this corruption and demonization on top of it. Pegasus, because I feel like it carries more of a masculine type quality, that there doesn't need to be so much demonization upon it. It's like, no, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. We're just going to go ahead and push through with these technologies, create all these secret intelligence agencies, do all these types of experiments under the Pegasus label. And it doesn't matter because it's a masculine energy. It's meant for war, and that's justified.
And it's acceptable within the masses, you know. It's like hidden in plain sight, as they would say. Like, that's what they do. They always hide things in plain sight, always. And I wanted to do, I'll have to do some further research also on the architect, Brad Goldberg. I just want to see like what else he builds and constructs. But it's like, you have to think too, like, do these architects even really have a say with what they're going to build? Because if they know what these systems are entailing and what they're building and what they're creating, someone's obviously pulling the strings with what goes on there. So they had an idea, they had a plan, they knew the mythology, they knew the symbolism, they knew what they were cultivating or what they were trying to cultivate. So it makes me think, you know, he might have not have even had really a say, like, this is what you build and this is how you have to build it. But we want like an artistic look, so it's not like detectable to the public that it's anything strange. And it's also, and what you said about masculine, there's this one like screen thing that's like above one of the buildings, and there's this like male, and he's like pulling power from the earth, and it's like it's very strange looking, and almost it reminds me of like the magician card in the tarot, but almost like darker than that. Like he's pulling the strings or like pulling the power out from the land, and it's just one masculine that's doing it. It's weird.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll send you that picture too. I have to go back through and look, but
that really, for me, ties me into a lot of the like levels of initiated beings that came from like the shadow aspects of God. I put a picture of it on the DAO seal removal video that I did, but I was just basically displaying, like, it was a picture of like an octopus man that was like controlling like a different type of man, and then
me of like tentacle, like pulling the strings, like that kind of like Illuminati kind of, you know, energy.
Yeah, that picture is on I wish I had it, I would show you, but it I feel like it's definitely representing the description of like what you're defining right now.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that because I remember I watched your video. Can I talk about the horse connection?
Yeah.
Like that, because for the Montauk project, there's a video that I sent you in the links, but it's talking about the Montauk survivors, and it's basically Al Balick and his brother Duncan Cameron, and then like Preston Nichols. That Preston Nichols wasn't necessarily a part of it, but he did like extensive research on the Montauk project. And then Duncan Cameron was actually a part of it. He was very, very psychic, and they utilized him in a lot of the time travel experiments. And according to Duncan Cameron, I'm just going to talk about this really quick because it ties in the horse. In these experiments, they sent a recruit to this year in the future. It was 6000 AD. And it was the same time, same place in the future, to an abandoned city where there was still a statue in solid gold. And then they would ask the people that they sent into the future what to look at it and to see what they would see. And what they saw, and when they would come back and interpreted it, they said that it was a statue of a golden horse, and that it was an abandoned city. It's the golden statue. It's a horse. It's in an abandoned city. It's sort of like a dream state. There's no dynamic ability ongoing. Every station almost feels like a frozen state. It's like a stationary, almost frozen state. That's what he said. And he said there's markings on the statue, and he knows where it was, but he didn't think he was allowed to say. And so they would take these recruits to the future of 6030 AD to the same location, same spot, and they all saw this golden horse in an abandoned city. They would see the same thing.
Interesting.
So why were they so intrigued with this one location of this abandoned city?
Where is the abandoned city?
He couldn't say. He wasn't allowed to say. Because they were trying, like the people that were interviewing him, they were talking in front of like a class of just maybe like 10 people. And they were trying to get it out of him. Like, what were the markings on the golden statue? What was the city? And he wasn't allowed to say what it was.
Interesting.
Right? So it makes me think, well, is it the DIA? Just because like they thought it was golden doesn't mean it necessarily was, or maybe they paint it in the future to gold, or, you know, I mean, 6030, you're 6030 AD, like,
or
you know
maybe
I mean?
they're kind of covering it up.
Yeah. Because he was involved in the experiments. What they would do is they would take like a psychic person and they would use this equipment to enhance the technology and the electromagnetic frequencies. It's like hertz, they said, but different. And the psychic would envision a vortex, like a portal, and open up this portal to the future, and then it would appear. It allowed these energies to basically manifest right before their eyes. And then they would send people through these portals to the future. And they were obsessed with that space. And what they would see is the golden horse in an abandoned city.
That's interesting, because the golden horse means like greed. It means like,
and then AUAG in the airport, that's inscribed on the floor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. At the DIA airport.
At the DIA, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting connections you're making there for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. It also makes me kind of think of that could be like a gateway into like the Atlantean Akashic field or the Atlantean timeline on some level too.
Yeah, because that's where I first heard about the golden horse, was through that video and him talking about it. And it was that future experiment that they kept running with all these different people. So there was obviously a very intense interest there to send them there to that same time, same location, to see the same thing over and over again, you know?
It's strange. Like, what would they be doing that for? Would they be trying to like program the subconscious experience of humanity, or imprint a memory into the collective field, or go back and change something, like alter timelines?
Yeah. It's weird. For sure.
Another thing with Pegasus is also the spyware program. So this was something I've been talking about.
Huge.
Let's see. I gotta find all my links here. I'm gonna go.
Okay, take your time.
I set everything up and then I'm like,
no, you're good. It's a lot.
It is so much. I don't know. Maybe I didn't pull
I feel like this is going to be a first of a series with Pegasus.
I think it's going to take time for us to be able to like put this in, because
it's like before our time, even. Like, you know,
well, we've always been on the cutting edge of that.
Yes. Well, it's like, this is how we receive it. Like you were mentioning, we receive all these things that just hit us, and they keep coming through to the point where we can't ignore it anymore. And then we get to a culmination point where we feel we have to talk about it because we feel the importance of it. We feel the emphasis of it. And it's during specific astrological alignments and different worldly affairs. And then it's like, okay, we have to do a video on it because the information won't leave us alone until we basically speak about it. So
yeah, definitely. And it's like, then you just start trying to decode it. And like you said, a series of it. Like we need to be able to, I think, create some sort of I guess, I don't want to say structure, but definitely some sort of organization and how like the connections are made and how it's interlinked. And like you said, it just is so much. It's just so much. It's like, what is actually necessary to understand? Do we really need to go into the tormented aspects of Montauk, or do we just follow the Pegasus, radial encryption that seems to just be leaving a string of all kinds of different projects that are underneath its name?
It's like a web.
It's the Pegasus web.
It is.
So this is the Pegasus spyware program. This has been all over the news. This is recent stuff. This is a spyware program that was developed by the NSO group in Israel, I believe, and they've already sold it to like 10 or 12 governments internationally that are using this program. It's a program that can basically hack iOS and Androids, and it can basically divulge all of the information you've ever done on your phone, period. So every call, every message, every text, every internet search, every picture you've ever taken or sent, it can access everything. And so I guess what's kind of at stake here is maybe people's democracy. So if this becomes something that the government decides to, completely weaponize, we all might be in a lot of trouble with this. I was actually.
Do you know what it reminded me of? Which, I mean, everything reminds me of, but Big Brother's Watching You, George Orwell, 1984.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that. It's like the all-seeing eye.
And it's interesting that it comes through Pegasus.
Yeah.
What is the deal with Pegasus?
The Eye of the Sahara. Because the Eye of Horus was actually just presented to me last night, which made that just think of that just now. So I don't know. It's just creepy.
No, it's interesting. It's almost like the concentric circle of the Eye of Sahara. No, I don't know. This Pegasus spyware it's got me interested. I was watching Edward Snowden because he's, an informant of these spy things. This story actually came up through Forbidden Stories. I don't know if you've ever heard of Forbidden Stories, but I guess it's a channel for like whistleblower stories that come forward.
I like it.
I know, right? And this came through that. And I guess Edward Snowden is just saying that like this technology, this spyware is going to go from like 50,000 people that they're spying on, just basically mainly targeting like public officials and like journalists and things like this, to blowing up in the matter of like a year or less, where like 50 million people are going to start being monitored with this, that people should actually start checking their phone systems for this like spyware program. I guess there's like an app you can get to check for it.
Okay, because they were saying it would be like completely undetected, so that way there was no way to really know for sure if it was happening. And I'm like, that's even creepier.
Yes, and I guess unless, yeah.
I don't like that.
Well, I didn't like, I was reading the apps, the apps to try to check and scan for the program. And I'm like, I don't even know if I trust the apps to download on my phone to check. Those apps are going to be what installs it on my phone. Like,
right. You have to think of the bigger picture. Like, what are they trying to get you to do and what is actually happening? And then I always think like, okay, well, they have, like, if you go to the CIA website, they have all these declassified documents of remote viewing and facial recognition and mind control experiments. It's like, it's all laid out there. But it shows this facial recognition technology from like a long time ago, where they were able to utilize this technology. So it makes me wonder, how long has this already actually been going on? And maybe they feel now that they have to somehow alert or notify the public about it. You know, it makes you wonder, like, how long has this actually been going on, where they've been spying through our phones and tracking us through our phones and monitoring what we're doing, saying, expressing, you know, and who holds the strings and who holds the algorithms and who holds everything. It's like, you know, it makes you wonder, like, how long has this actually already been going on? Like, we're not stupid, you know.
This is the link you sent me on the CIA website. Was there like something in particular you wanted me to go to?
You know, I think there's like 3 bars. Maybe it's at the bottom. I think it's at the bottom. Sorry. Browse. Hold on. It is. I forget exactly which link it is, but there's one that you can click on that shows all about the declassified experiments that they did. I forget which link it is, but I think it's under, maybe it's under, no, I forget which link it is.
The World Fact Book. This sounds interesting. Center for Study, Freedom of Information Act. Well, that's okay.
Yeah, but there is, I'll send it to you after this. Like once I find it, I'll copy the link and send it to you. But it's on the website. I swore it was at the bottom.
I think what I'm finding is there's just so many different levels and ways that I guess beast machines are being implemented. Like we have beast machines at a subatomic level in the grids that I feel really come through the Aquila Anunnaki systems that come through like the Muslim facets of things. And I don't really like to like label that because it doesn't make me feel good. But when I look at the control systems, when I look at who's controlling the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, when I look at who's controlling the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia, when I look at whose lands actually the Eye of Sahara is on, it's like it's ran by the Muslims. When we look at the most recent warfare in Afghanistan, the longest war U.S. military has ever been through. I mean, it's through Afghanistan. Right. These are all Muslim ran systems. Like, I feel like those are actually what's hosting these low frequency transmissions into the grids that's keeping the state of the world in a descending cycle. It's keeping the state,
and a lot of it's controlled through fear. A lot of it. Like, I don't know a lot about the religion and things like that. I'm still like, I'm constantly learning about it. But I feel a lot of it is ran through fear because there's just so much oppression and so much force and so much control that I feel like a lot of it is ran through that frequency of fear.
Absolutely. But then like we get to like these higher levels. So it's like, that's like a subatomic level. I feel like they're controlling this like undercurrent. And then you get to this higher level of control and it comes into the 3D matrix. And then you have overlay systems. Yeah. Like you have these control matrices that pinpoint and kind of link into those. And then on top of that, we have this like cyber warfare. Right. Cyber systems. Right. That are like linking into those. And so it's like every time we kind of step up this like ladder of collective reality and shared experience.
Concentric circles.
Yeah. Like more rings of the concentric circles. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Huge. It's their way to heaven that's being corrupted and anchored down into, all of these different systems. Yeah. And it is. Yeah. And so Pegasus has such a huge role in this. Yeah. And I talked about this on my update. I was talking about Pegasus. I feel like it defines like the global war checkerboard because you have two knight pawns, two horse pawns, one white, one black on the checkerboard game. Yes. And
I have chills.
Oh, I've been thinking about this too. I'm just like that. I guess Pegasus doesn't see light or dark. Pegasus doesn't see the polarization. It's in a constant state of opposition within those two polarities. And that's where it exists in terms of how it assists the global checkerboard of information. It's just information. Right. And the knight or the Pegasus horse is so important because the way it can move. It can, like, if you think about the game, it can move adjacent through squares. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like I'm a chess player. Like, after diving into this, I'm like, I need to become a chess player.
To learn chess now.
I think it would help define the way and the strategies in which things are actually being implemented. But like it's a mysterious, undetectable force and piece, and it's one of the most important players on the checkerboard game. And so I kind of think that's how it's actually being defined in all of the ways in which it's being expressed here on the earth through all of these different systems.
You're good. that was a great metaphor, great analogy. Wow.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just following the horse. I'm just following the horse and all of its symbolism. And I think the question is too, is people might ask, how is Pegasus connected to the horse? Like Pegasus is a winged horse, and then we have the horse. But I mean, if you think about when the mythology of Pegasus emerged, it was through Greek mythology. It was through, I guess, the time of Plato and Atlantis is when it actually became recognized on some degree. And I think that Poseidon created both horse and winged horse, and that they are from the same soul collective. They're from the same soul egregore. And so that's why there's no separation.
Yeah, he did. I remember reading about that. Ooh, I have chills everywhere. Oh my gosh.
For sure. Well, you look so pretty. Your hair looks so healthy. And
oh, thank you. You look gorgeous. You always look gorgeous.
My hair is dyed. It's not as healthy, but
well, it's beautiful.
Oh,
I want to dye mine. I want to dye mine a really cool color, but I'm too chicken shit. So maybe someday I'll get the guts to dye it.
You definitely would have to bleach it and then dye it. That's
the
crappy thing.
I know. I've bleached it one time and it was like Paris Hilton blonde and it fried my hair. And that's why I'm like, I want to, but I'm scared at the same time. I don't know.
My hair was like yours, like all dark and long and pretty. And then
you did have brown hair.
I had an identity crisis one day at the hair salon.
I love you. I've been there too. I did the same thing. I dyed mine like it was like Paris Hilton, like bright blonde. I came home. My mom was like, "What did you do?" I'm like, I
don't know. I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's something about being blonde that makes me feel more youthful.
Yeah.
I guess right now I feel like
it's fun and it's like it is. I like it.
It's like still sexy. You still feel sexy or something. I don't know.
I think blondes do have more fun. They get more attention.
Yeah. They do.
It's cool. Yeah. I wanted to talk about one last thing because it's really cool. Let me just figure out where it is. It has to do with the 9 muses. Here, hold on one second. Where did I put you?
I feel like what we're discussing right now could be a book.
Oh, it is.
This is a book. Like this is not something we can wrap up in one conversation. Yeah.
It's a novel. We're trying to fit it into like an hour. It's like impossible.
Well, and I feel like we're jumping from like topic to topic without having as much deep insight into each thing that it totally like deserves.
But it's piecing it together. And I feel like there's going to probably be more videos after this, the more we uncover, because I'm not going to stop looking into this because I'm like obsessed at this point.
I feel
yeah. So what I want to talk about really quick is that Pegasus, like the mythology, how you said he sprang from Medusa's severed head, and then he stamped the earth with his hoof, creating the fountain of the muses. And so the architect, Brad Goldberg, he made these 9 muses that are scattered throughout the plaza, taken from marble falls and carved and dedicated to the 9 muses. They're granite boulders. And so what's interesting is I was doing, this ties into the Greek thing. Let me find it here. I have so many notes. It's like insane. So the muses were believed to live on Mount Olympus, where they entertained their father and other Olympian gods with their great artistry. But later the tradition was also placed them on Mount Parnassus, where the Castalian spring was, a favorite destination for poets and artists. So then I was looking into the Castalian spring because I'm like, okay, well, what is this connection? Because there's the well, there's the fountain, there's the spring. And he obviously knew like the 9 muses were tied into it. And then I found out that the 9 muses were there at the Castalian spring. And it ties into Delphi, Greece, Delphi. with the Castalian spring. And I've been told in a past life that I was one of the oracles of Delphi. So I was like, oh, that's weird. You know, I don't know for sure, but it does somewhat resonate. But what's also interesting is that there was stuff that came through also with my friends with Greece recently. Like one of my friends had clothing that was passed down, and one of the purses said Greece on it. That's one of her ancestors. But the Castalian spring holds significance too. And I think it's also tied to Pegasus for sure, because it's still there and it's really hard to access it. Like it's really hard to get there. They have it like off the beaten path where it's like super, super hard to even access it. So I think there's a tie there too, to Pegasus as well.
Interesting.
The Castalian spring. Yeah. And let me see.
Well, that was one thing I've always noticed about Pegasus. Like with the other star systems, it almost feels like they're encoded more specifically geographically somewhere. But with Pegasus, it just feels like it's everywhere.
Yeah. It does. It's like it's into everything.
You seen my Pegasus necklace?
Oh, that's beautiful. That's amazing. Is that in obsidian or tiger's eye?
I believe it's supposed to be shungite.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. Nice.
Yeah, I was ready.
Heck yeah.
Bringing this Pegasus magic to the world.
Yeah. They were saying like it was like purifying water, like the Castalian spring was almost looked at kind of like a fountain of youth. And it intrigued me because there's been messages about the Infinity Stone and like the Philosopher's Stone. And then you were talking about the stone that was found in the Kaaba, which also came up recently, which would tie into like the Pegasian stuff. And then there's like a well over here, and maybe there's like some sort of stone by that or in that well. I don't know. It's just like stuff that's coming through that I'm just kind of like letting flow through me right now. But I feel like it has something to do with it. Like there's some sort of stones there. They were talking. I remember reading something last night about like 9 infinity stones, 7 or 9 of them that are located around the world. So it's intriguing to think about.
Yeah, interesting. 9 infinity stones around the
world.
world.
Like philosopher's stones. And those are the ones that are supposedly able to transmute granite to silver and gold.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, we should try to find out where those are located.
Yeah, because that came up recently. I was looking into gematria, and it showed up in one of my friend's gematrias, and it said something about the Kaaba stone. So I'll have to send that to you after this. But let me see. Hold on one second. There was one more thing. So I'm just going to read this really quick until I find it, I guess. They were saying the purifying water of the Castalian spring gushed from the slopes of Phaedrida called Hyampia in antiquity and flowed into a narrow gorge where the myth had it that the dread guardian of the oracle Python, the son of the earth, had its lair. The stone fountain of the same name was built along the side of the road that led to the precinct of Apollo in early 6th BC. It supplied the sacred oracle of Delphi with water, which served for the purification both of priests as well as the faithful who entered the sanctuary. According to local tradition, the spring took its name either from the local hero Castalios or the nymph Castalia, the daughter of the river god Archelios. And during its long use over the centuries, the Castalian spring of the Archaic period, which is mentioned by Herodotus, Pindar, and many other poets, underwent many repairs and alterations. It was restored in 1959 by the Greek architect Anastasios Orlandos, and again in 1977 by the French archaeologist School. It consists of a rectangular basin divided into a central and 2-sided chambers. The water was channeled into the central section of the basin through a rock-cut water channel, just like the Pegasus Plaza one, but not in a circle. The facade of the central chamber was decorated with semi-columns and 4 or 7 bronze lion head spouts. And I've seen pictures of these. There's only like 2 that are still intact. This is the Castalian Springs.
Wow.
So, and we're in Lionsgate right now. So that's why, like, I was like, there's something here. And in the area in front of the central chamber, paved courtyard was created at a lower level with stone benches along the walls. It was often called the rock fountain. The system for collecting and supplying water and the formation into spaces was identical with the earlier fountain. But it's interesting that, you know, it was this Castalian spring that's tied into Pegasus that flowed water to the Oracle of Delphi. And there's like all these ties to like the serpent energy and then also the lion energy. So I just wanted to throw that in there because it's really interesting. And it's also interesting that it's like so hard to access. They said during the Ottoman period, one of the 3 large niches was converted into the apse of a small church dedicated to St. John the Baptist. And they're saying that St. John the Baptist did like baptisms there.
Interesting.
In the Castalian spring. So
I guess while you're saying all that, the main thing I'm thinking is it's just so universal.
Yeah. It's like, it's so vast.
And
it's found right next to the Oracle of Delphi. And they believed the spring had cleansing waters, that it could cleanse the souls of visitors to the popular temple of Apollo.
So it's like,
and
second,
it's the place where
second to the sun.
Yeah. And it's the place where God Apollo killed the dragon Python, who used to torture Apollo's mother when she was pregnant. So it had 7 jets with the head of lions, but only 2 remain today. It's a marble lined basin. And the statues of the 9 muses are marble.
Where are the statues of the 9 muses located?
It's in Pegasus Plaza.
All 9 of the muses are in Pegasus Plaza?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah.
I think they're carved into rocks. They're those rocks.
Okay.
So they have like the different names, like there's Arato, which is the muse of love and poetry, Thalia, the muse of comedy, Terpsichore, Cleo, Calliope, Urania, Polynia. I'm probably saying these so wrong. Euterpe and Melpomene. Those are all 9, and they're carved into rocks, and they say what they're the muse of. So it's just, it ties somehow into Castalian Springs. That's why I did research on that, because I'm like, okay, there's a connection here with Greece. There's a connection here with the plaza. There's a connection with DIA. There's a connection with Rhode Island and Montauk. It's just, like you said, it's the more we dig, the more we're finding the connections. Yeah.
I feel like we've yet to decode its structure, like its rhythm. Like it really is the concentric circles. So I mean, it's all encompassing energy. Ein Sof,
which means infinity, infinite.
Yeah.
And then you're like, that kind of sounds like Eye of Sahara. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's this it just keeps going and going, these energies. But there's definitely ties to the governmental projects, and there's definitely ties to the time travel experiments and the spyware that you mentioned, the Pegasus spyware.
And the Nexus systems too.
And the control. It's interesting they're utilizing water as a conduit to control these energies. And rocks and materials and metals. I was
just thinking that. Like the fact that Pegasus is born from the water, it's definitely like a intermediate area of where they're either tapping in, controlling, inserting matrices. What?
There's a huge quartz crystal rock there, right in the plaza. Quartz, silica, conduit, water.
Yeah.
Why would they choose a huge quartz cluster out of all things they could put there? I mean, it was probably not easy to put there.
And now I feel like we're going into why Atlantis fell.
Yes. And wait, oh my God. And they use the quartz crystal in all our technology. Like our computers are made with quartz crystal. everything, our radios, frequencies.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that was one other thing I wanted to mention. I'm sorry, this is all over the place, but I know the government does control a lot of our minds through frequencies. It's on the CIA website. There's so many things that talk about it. We have the 5G towers now, and we have, that whole radio tower that was on top of the Montauk building.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's some sort of tie there with the government, how they did the mind control experiments, figuring out how to manipulate people and humans through the brain, through frequency transmissions. And I feel like there's some sort of link there with the water, with the crystal, with the technology, and also like the 5G towers and how they're probably still doing it today.
Yeah, definitely.
And through our cell phones. I mean, cell phones,
It's definitely, yeah, absolutely. Like it's definitely through with tampering the magnetic field.
Yeah.
Because if you think about water being the magnetic base. And I know that for sure was one of the experiments that was happening at Montauk projects.
Wow.
And that was how they,
and it's in Stranger Things where they put her tied up with the little things on her head, and she has to go in water to make portals and to see things. They put her in a pool, and I think they pour in salt or some sort of metal or something. I'll find out and I'll send it to you after this. There's a lot here, but yeah, they utilize water too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had so much fun talking about this with you today. I am going to have to wrap it up for today because
it's okay.
I have so much going on.
I know.
It's always a pleasure talking to you and just, creating those synchronizations and just honestly like creating more to kind of see into and to go off of. And there's so much here. Like I feel like we could write a book about this.
Yeah.
Together.
Maybe
we could sit down and
maybe we will.
Yeah, maybe we will.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on my show today. And
thank you for having me. It's always an honor.
I'm sure we're going to get together and just allude more on the Pegasus system.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone who watched today. We love you all so much. And be sure to like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I hope everyone has a blessed day. Cosmic blessings. Have a beautiful everything.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I don't know what the reason was, but I do remember that one of the things they did was they sent every raw recruit forward into the future to a year around 6030 AD. And it was always to the same point. Someplace in the future in the middle of an abandoned city with a square where there was still a statue in solid gold. And they would ask them to look at this and see what they saw after they came back. And they interpreted whatever the individual saw, for what purpose I'm not sure, but this was one instance where apparently all recruits were sent to this point in time to see what they saw, and whether they were expecting to find a different answer, and from person to person, I don't know.
Were they equipped with protective suits or equipment?
No, ordinary clothes.
That's if they were going to a friendly environment.
Yeah.
Well, if you're sending someone into the future, into a possible nuclear...
Well, they first would look into the future through the vortex. They could sample the air, they could sample everything on this side.
Now, were there different potential futures that people could be sent to?
No, because once you make the first connection in the future, it's fixed. Anything from that future point back is fixed.
But what I'm saying is, are there different futures that they could go into?
The first projection, yes, there's multiple different futures. But once the first projection is made into the future, from that point back, from the future, let's say they project from 83 to the future.
Okay.
From this point back, it's not fixed. Because the fact that he went from here to here has not fixed the time.
Even after they turn off the machine or whatever?
Because the fact they turned off the machine does not alter that he was here and then came back.
Right.
Then that sounds like you couldn't change the present by sending someone to the past.
Yes,
Definitely.
You can, yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
You can change the present by sending someone into the future, too, for that matter.
Yep.
How do you change the present by sending someone into the future?
Under certain conditions, you can.
Well, it's a closed loop, you can.
Cameron, had you gone into the future at all? Yes, I've seen the horse, which Al speaks of. It's a
Oh, the golden statue.
the golden statue. It's a horse with no rider. It's an abandoned city. It's sort of like a dream state. It's a very peculiar where there is virtually no dynamic ability ongoing. It's a very stationary, almost frozen state.
No markings on the statue, no, you know what it was, what it referred to.
I don't think I can say.
Beyond that, do you want to make any statements about anything else in the future that might interest people, or that you could talk about without doing damage?
Only in the fact that when there is a function that is presented ahead, there are increments that from that particular point in time, which was propagated from, there will be effect back to the initial point of reference. That is the nature of the beast, as Preston spoke. Yeah. Once you have a reference,
once you close the loop,
whether it be ahead or behind, that doesn't necessarily mean that that particular point in the future cannot be changed. Everything and nothing is possible. So
if there are changes that were going on in the future, you can't really do much about that yourself, could you?
Oh, that's correct.
Right.
Could it be just like a projection or something, or not the real future? Some kind of
something
on the mind?
To answer the question, depending upon what realism set of functions, however they be real or manifested or surrealistic, depending what function and what time line, there are many timelines and functions of realism. Depending where you're going and where you attribute the point of reference, that determines how it will affect, as let's say you and I here, as to us here directly. The realistic point, how much that, let's say it's a manifested realism, that could have some effect here, but not that dramatically. As something, let's say, us sitting here 20 years ahead, that is in our space and framework and function of time, so that would affect us more dramatically than just something that was sort of created.
Okay, say that one psychic sets up a vortex to the future and we use that and then we shut that one down. If another psychic sets up a vortex to the future, will it go to the same future or can it go to a different one?
They'll go to wherever the function is generated to go to.
That's correct.
Okay.
There had to be people who were really controlling this very exactly, specifically.
Oh, yes.
Surely.
Very definitely.
Very much.
But what I'm saying is it'll go to a different place in time, but will it be on the same timeline, the same reality as the first psychic's vortex?
As long as it's before the most furthest point they projected ahead, yes, it will be. In fact, the government is using that today to, the existing time machines still flow in the Montauk line.
Okay, once they have done that, can we go back in time and change the past to change the present, and then the future will be changed?
You already did it. With the loop flows, everybody does automatically what they're supposed to do. If
the loop has been closed once you've gone to the future.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about our present being changed now.
No, it can't be changed.
Because we've already looped to the future through it.
And through the past.
Right.
If, let's say this is 83, let's say this is year 1, this is year 1000. And you go from 83 to year 1, from 83 to year, 2000. Anywhere between 2000 and 1, now you fed it back on itself. That means...
So it's locked.
Whatever the people do in here, they're going to do forever and ever. We're in an endless do loop in the computer right now.
What is the furthest forward anyone has traveled that you know of?
10,000.
So that's all locked through 10,000.
Unless the vortex can be broken.
Can you describe any recollection of anybody you know that has traveled that far into the future?
Nobody has ever gotten that far into the future and gotten into a real, almost like a running life situation, so we don't know what it is. As Duncan described, it always appears to be like a dream state where they hardly ever encounter any other people.
What about, all right, as far as going into the future and encountering people on Earth, okay, how far ahead is that?
Near term.
I believe they've gone about 10,000 years ahead.
But you still...
But and encountered people.
No, what I'm saying is encountered something other than a dreamlike or a sublimated state. Interacted with people.
How far can you go and get a tangible, real future? Or can you do that?
No one's gotten a tangible, real future beyond 2012.
2012, 13, 14.
Somewhere in there.
Depends.
Does that indicate that maybe things have changed so radically at that time that there isn't anything else to see?
Something's happened.
There is a very, very abrupt wall there with nothing on the other side.
But the prophecies speak of the earth changes at those times.
Curious, isn't it?
Isn't it?